Welcome again, Keepers of Light, and I call you that because you are just that. Keepers of Light. I'm hoping all of you are doing well, and I wasn't planning to come on here today, but then I had the urge to record something, so here I am. And I was thinking about yesterday and yesterday's session, and just wanted to touch on that a little bit, and then I'll just let whatever unfold. So yesterday, when I was doing the session, it was about nonlinear versus the cosmic perspective. So the nonlinear perspective versus the linear perspective of existence. And I guess maybe this will be a continuation of that same message. And it's going to branch off anyway. Things always branch off. But yesterday, when I was speaking, I ended up channeling Tom Jacobs, and he is on the other side, and he just came through so that he can kind of corroborate the message that I was saying about how, from the non-physical perspective, from the more cosmic, which is non-physical because there's less of density involved in the existence of consciousness and how it is experiencing itself. From that perspective, how these messages are being communicated through us, and they do get communicated, and anybody can receive messages, and this is not reserved to me or any in any regard other than that there is more of a potential for connection when you have delved deep into yourself enough to release some of the beliefs that are holding you back from receiving the information. And the beliefs are really frequencies, so it's kind of like you're just right now releasing frequencies, and that's the process that the Keeper of Light is in right now, as I speak. And he came through, and right now, like, okay, so what my experiences have been from my perspective, what happens is I have particular souls who are here to kind of work with me in this ascension process and conveying this type of information to you. It's not coming from my personality. Like, this information is being tapped into from the higher cosmic perspective. And I believe that Tom is one of those teachers that, and I'm not going to say it's Tom as how we knew Tom, but I'm talking about the fractal of consciousness, what he represents and what he came here in his lifetime to do. His work continues, and we're all like blended, so there's a blending of consciousness with him. And what I experienced yesterday was exactly being demonstrated, so that you could kind of see how it is that this information actually does get communicated to and through us. And so I have a lot of non-physical teachers. I have a lot of fractals of ascended masters, and you name it, like angels. I have a real strong spiritual team supporting the messages here, and this is why they come through the way they come through. Like, in that way, I don't take individual credit for any of the messages here. And one of the ways in which communication happens through them is also through metaphors. And that was the word I was looking for yesterday, was like metaphors. And I was thinking about right now, just thinking about the metaphor of looking at life like life is a school. Is that a metaphor? I think metaphor is the word. When you're on the spiritual path, And part of my job is to demystify spirituality, because there are many who resist this journey of spirituality because of how it has been misidentified and misunderstood. And my job is to, to speak on it in such a way where I'm able to communicate with and everybody across the spectrum of human beings. It has felt for me as though I'd been in back-to-back lessons from the time that I came into this existence. I just feel like the whole thing was just one lesson after the next, after the next. After a while, I just kind of thought like, uh, when is this? When am I gonna get a break from all this? And what I am experiencing now is that break. I really feel as though like I now feeling as though I'm getting a break um, from from trying to master these topics. I am also having to learn how to trust myself, because it's a completely different way of operating that I'm in right now. I'm following urges. I am allowing myself to access the blueprint of my soul and to walk from having a line to that, from my alignment to that. In many ways, that's what the keeper of light is up to also. It There's noise that's kind of distracting me. Sorry about this. I'm gonna focus. So yeah, so it used to be that I would relate to life in that way, in that way where, you're kind of like you're in school and you're like access information. You go to the library, you pick up your, a book, or you go to school, you go to your class, and now you have your book, there, and you're accessing information that way, like physical books, you know. But when it comes to spirituality, they're not physical books that we're looking at. Physical books are what, when you're involved in that realm of receiving information, you're just now um, allowing yourself to participate within the structure of reality that has been constructed. But what's going on here with us is that we're constructing a completely new reality. Like not just a new earth, but a whole new human way of being. In that case, a whole new human being, because there's these upgrades that are happening. They're happening at that level of depth where we're looking at DNA changing. Like DNA, also needs to get deconstructed, so that it's not termed in a way, in a fashion that makes it seem like this like impossible thing that never happens. I'm like, it is happening. That's another topic. So what am I getting to here? I don't want to make this message too long. What am I getting to here? Okay, so I'm getting to the point of alignment. This is about aligning, and this is about keepers of light learning how to align into the blueprint. And that was the message, one of the messages from the last message, the last recording, that keepers of light are learning how to access, which is access information. So in this way, accessing information, and that way, because you're not accessing information from books that have already been written. I mean, the information I'm talking about is ancient information, and it is, I just had like a whole flash about time, because when I use the word ancient, it made me think that ancient also is happening now. It's like, because time itself doesn't necessarily exist either. So this is it becomes a little more complex. But the cosmic information, which is in the nonlinear, realm of existence, in the non-physical existence. It is more ancient in nature, which is more to say that it's more in alignment to source than it is the information that is being portrayed as the structure of reality for the 3D reality. So in that way, you have more of a choice. And this kind of bridges into the topic for those who, across the spectrum of keepers of light, who are keepers of light, who are needing the sort of information that is more scientific in nature. Uh, that that spirituality in itself, when you are allowing yourself to receive the information, when you have now addressed those lower level fears, those lower level frequencies of fears, once you've addressed that, then you open the door to now being able to receive the grander perspective, the more ancient perspective. And it is itself even more mathematical and more systematic than what we call science here on the 3D plane. So the thing of it is, like, I do believe that the people who are more scientific, if they actually allowed themselves to play on this wavelength of perception, that they wouldn't object to it, that they'd actually find more enjoyment in it than they would have ever believed. And why am I going into this? I guess okay, so what it is I have people who are listening who are kind of like, you guys are kind of like, okay, you know what? Make this make sense to me. Make this make sense to me so that it's more like, not necessarily, it's more graspable. And that's what I'm trying to do, guys. That's what I'm trying to do. I remember when I was in college, I couldn't figure out how to apply, you know, how to apply myself, or what to choose in terms of careers and all that. But I do remember being very interested in being an interpreter, and I actually contemplated being a Spanish, Hispanic interpreter. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it was in my intuition, and have always known that I would be translating something. I just never really saw this coming, in this way, that I'll be translating spirituality um, in this way. So how do I make this information more graspable? I already am, is what I'm hearing. So just continue to speak. So what I was saying earlier was, God, I'm so tired. I was saying how accessing information from books, you're accessing information from books, but now and that's how it felt like. It always felt like I was in the process of accessing info, and then there's a period of time where you integrate the info. So imagine you're in a class, and this is why, like, I always said to people, like, even when I was in school, I used to allow myself to have like a good month of listening to a subject, even if it was a completely foreign subject that I'd never heard of before, so that I could kind of like let the mind like get used to the information, and then it starts to integrate it, and before long you start to understand things. That's really how we function as human beings, is that the information we put into our mental field, once it's been repetitively put there for a long time, then eventually your mind starts to your mental field, you start to integrate what has been put um, into your mental field, and then to start to apply it in a practical way, and you start to become in alignment to that, in that sense that now you are identifying yourself as you're assuming an identity point that understands it. So I think that's where I'm going to. So, but what right now what we're doing is we're we're accessing the nonlinear information so that we can become one with it. Because the idea is that to while you're becoming this new human being, and it's just like your form starts to change and upgrade in that way that the frequencies that are composed of your beingness are now reconfiguring, given the information that now you have allowed yourself to have access to. When you begin to do that, you also are aligning to the blueprint of your soul. And this is because you are now accessing information that is more in alignment to the soul. It is more in alignment to to the cosmic field, which we can say is really like the unified field of source consciousness. And that is where we're headed. When you are in alignment to your blueprint, you become a completely different person. Your perspective of yourself and what you now are identifying yourself as is no longer limited to a sense of self that has limitation, but a sense of self that actually is empowered in that way that now you actually even have more access to choices and choice points that you didn't have before, that you never had before. Because before you were, constricted by the parameters that were keeping you bound to the reality that, so many are trying to keep people bound to right now as I speak. But there are more and more people like me, more and more of us who are awakening. You're yourself in that, and um, in that fold of consciousness. And I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm a little bit off today, so it's not really like I don't feel like this is like one of my best recordings, but it is what it is, and I'm not here to impress anyone. What's really exciting to me about all this is really that I finally am feeling as though exactly what I just said, that I'm aligning to my blueprint. And when you get to that point where you're feeling as though you're kind of like settling into the very core of the thing that makes your heart like sing, when you're coming from that point of state of beingness, then you're moving in life in a way where you're the expression of free will. You're the expression of of having embodied a sense of self that your soul has wanted to embody and has come here to embody. You're living from that sense of self, and therefore experiencing a level of enjoyment that cannot be taken from you by anyone or by anything. And that's what I want for you all. Like, that's what I want. Like, I want to help everyone who is listening to connect to these words that deeply, that you start to really learn how to reconfigure yourself. Because everything that I say, it's not necessarily like I'm doing anything. I can't do anything to reconfigure you. It is you who reconfigure yourself. It's you who take yourself to the places where you take yourself. It's you who is making all the decisions. It's just that, see, the thing of it is, like, a lot of people try to avoid the topic of spirituality because they've been told and led to believe that it is more constrictive to the self, and that now you're because that you are, what do you call, fooling yourself. Like, you're fooling yourself. And that but the reality of it is that spirituality does lead to a point where you are living from a level of, from a sense of freedom that you once never had before. Because the 3D plane is all about limitation. It's all about constriction. It's all about, and it's not a bad thing, you know. Overall, I think that there are people who are here for that experience. Now, that's a point that I have to make loudly because, like I said before, I'm not here to determine what a person's soul path is, but at the same time, each person does have a soul path and a soul blueprint. And I'm just saying that if you're here listening to this, then you have opened up to the level of awareness that all of this that I'm talking about is possible. And I'm going to leave it like this. I kind of like sensing that I'm a little hazy, but other than that, I'm happy. And I look forward to our next session together. I may not be able to record no, I'm not going to be able to record over the weekend. It'll be like Monday or Tuesday or something before you see me again. But I welcome you to listen to any of the other stuff that I've posted beforehand. Until next time.